Most people don't realize this, but their mind has already been programmed, just not by them. And that's exactly why they feel weak, distracted, and easily broken. We live in a world that rewards comfort but punishes strength. People scroll for hours, compare themselves endlessly, and wonder why their spirit feels drained. They avoid discomfort, avoid challenges, avoid anything that threatens their ego. Yet those are the very things that build an unshakable mind. What they call stress is often just the weight of an untrained inner world. The Stoics understood this long before we did, and their laws were never meant to sound gentle. They were meant to transform you. Today, we will walk through 8 brutal Stoic laws that can rewire your thinking, rebuild your discipline, and make you mentally unbreakable. Take a breath, ground yourself, and comment. I'm ready. 1. Embrace hardship like a friend. There is a brutal truth almost no one wants to hear. Comfort is slowly weakening you. Every time you choose the easy path, every time you avoid something challenging, every time you back away from discomfort, you reinforce the version of yourself that breaks under pressure. Modern life has convinced people that happiness comes from eliminating anything painful, inconvenient, or difficult. But the Stoics believed the exact opposite. The path to inner strength is paved with voluntary hardship. Think about your own life for a moment. When did you actually grow? When did you become sharper, wiser, stronger, more capable? It was never during the easy seasons. It was never when everything went your way. It was during the moments you didn't want, the moments that tested you, the moments that pushed you so hard you questioned whether you could keep going. Hardship wasn't your enemy. It was your trainer. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle is the way, not because struggle feels good, but because struggle is the only place where your mind is forced to shed its weaknesses. When you face something uncomfortable, your instincts scream, escape, or avoid. But when you lean into it, when you step forward instead of stepping back, you build a kind of psychological armor that cannot be forged any other way. You learn that fear is survivable. You learn that pain is informative. You learn that your limits were never real. They were just habits. And here's the part most people misunderstand. Embracing hardship doesn't mean seeking suffering for no reason. It means choosing challenges that refine you. It means placing yourself deliberately in situations that expand your nervous system instead of shrinking it. It means doing the difficult thing now so life can't break you later. Cold mornings, tough conversations, extra reps when you're tired, a little fasting, a little discipline, a little intentional resistance. These micro struggles build macro strength. In everyday American life, people crumble over traffic, emails, slow results, criticism, or a single rejection. Not because these things are unbearable, but because they never built the muscles required to handle them. They trained for comfort, not resilience. They trained for convenience, not character. They trained for ease, not endurance. Your job is to train differently. Start with one small act of discomfort today. Take the cold shower. Walk when you'd rather sit. Tackle the task you've been avoiding, or have the conversation you've been postponing. Don't debate it. Don't delay it. Just step into it. Because the first Stoic law is simple and unchanging. Discomfort is your training ground. 2. Master your emotions before they master you. There is a moment, tiny, invisible, usually ignored, between what happens to you and how you respond. That small gap is the difference between a life controlled by emotion and a life directed by wisdom. Most people never notice the gap. They react instantly, impulsively, emotionally. Someone criticizes them and they snap. Someone disrespects them and they explode. Someone disappoints them and they collapse. They don't respond to life. They get dragged by it. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Notice the gap and claim it. The modern world is emotionally explosive. People are triggered by opinions, Headlines, comments, delays, inconveniences, anything that doesn't align with how they think life should be. Because they never trained emotional discipline, they mistake every passing feeling for a command. They think, I feel angry, so I must act angry. I feel hurt, so I must shrink. I feel anxious, so I must retreat. Feelings become orders, and they obey every one of them. Epictetus warned about this thousands of years ago. He said, it's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it. Meaning the real danger is not the event. It's your narrative about the event. Someone ignores your message. You assume they don't value you. Someone criticizes you. You assume you're failing. Someone chooses distance. You assume you're unworthy. The story inside your head becomes the prison you live in. But once you learn to master the gap, everything changes. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. You feel irritation rising. Instead of reacting, you breathe. Instead of tightening your jaw, you relax your shoulders. Instead of feeding the emotion, you question it. Is this worth my peace? In that moment, you shift from being controlled to being in control. Or imagine someone throws a passive-aggressive comment at you. Your instinct may be to defend yourself, but a Stoic pauses. A Stoic observes the emotion without becoming the emotion. A Stoic responds with clarity, not impulse. You maintain your power because you didn't hand it over to someone else's insecurity. Emotional mastery is not emotional suppression. It's emotional understanding. It's naming what you feel: anger, fear, embarrassment, jealousy, disappointment, and making sure it doesn't make your decisions for you. You let the emotion pass through, not take over. So here is the practice. Pause. Breathe. Question. 3 steps. Simple, but life-changing. The more you practice this, the more you realize how much unnecessary suffering you were creating for yourself. You weren't losing control of life. Your feelings were pulling you. The Stoic law is clear. Be the master, not the puppet. 3. Stop expecting life to be fair. There is a painful truth people spend their entire lives running from. Life is not fair, and it never promised to be. Yet most suffering today comes from the belief that it should be. People think, I worked hard, so I deserve success. I was loyal, so they should be loyal. I was kind, so life should reward me. And when the world doesn't match their expectations, they break, not because the event was unbearable, but because their expectations were unrealistic. Stoicism begins where illusions end. Marcus Aurelius lived through betrayal, war, illness, loss, and chaos. Yet he wrote with calm acceptance. He didn't ask, why me? He asked, why not me? He understood something most people never learn. Unfairness is part of life's structure, not a glitch in its design. Consider your own experiences. You've seen people get promotions they didn't earn. You've seen good people abandoned. You've seen dishonest people rewarded. You've seen effort go unnoticed and talent ignored. These moments hurt, not because they're rare, but because they shatter the fantasy that life should operate like a moral scoreboard. The Stoics knew that expecting fairness was the fastest route to bitterness. They taught that the world is filled with flawed people, conflicting motives, unpredictable events, and outcomes we cannot control. When you expect fairness from chaos, you create your own disappointment. But rejecting the expectation of fairness is not pessimism, it's liberation. When you stop expecting life to follow your script, you stop taking everything personally. Someone betrays you. It reveals their character, not your worth. Someone disrespects you. It exposes their insecurity, not your failure. A door closes. It just means it wasn't your door. You free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of "this shouldn't be happening" and move into the clear-minded reality of "this is happening. Now what will I do?" Seneca wrote that a wise person adapts to the world, not the world to them. He believed the strongest mind is the one that stops demanding fairness and starts responding with strength. When life hits you unfairly, you don't crumble or complain. You convert it into fuel. Here is the shift. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How can I use this?" Every unfair moment becomes training. Every betrayal teaches discernment. Every loss sharpens resilience. Every disappointment builds emotional calluses. Life's unfairness becomes your forge, your fire, your sharpening stone. The Stoic law is simple and brutal. Life is unfair, but you don't have to be unprepared. 4. Focus only on what you can control. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the obsession with controlling what was never yours to control. People try to control other people's opinions, timing, loyalty, reactions, decisions, moods, and outcomes. They try to control the future, the past, and every possible scenario in between. And the more they try, the more exhausted, frustrated, and powerless they feel. Because the world does not bend to desire, it bends to reality. Stoicism cuts through this chaos with a single principle. Focus on what you can control. Release what you cannot. It sounds simple, but in practice, it requires brutal honesty. Ask yourself, how much of your stress comes from things outside your influence? You worry about who likes you, who doesn't, why someone hasn't texted back, whether you'll succeed, whether people will approve, whether life will unfold the way you imagined. But none of those things belong to you. They never did. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you stop trying to control what isn't yours. He said that your thoughts, choices, actions, and values, that's where your power lives. Everything else is noise. When you redirect your energy to the things you can actually influence, life becomes lighter, clearer, and far more manageable. Think about a ship caught in a storm. The captain cannot control the wind, the waves, or the unpredictable sea. But he can control the wheel. He can control the direction, the adjustments, the discipline to stay focused. Panic changes nothing. Control of the wheel changes everything. It's the same with your life. You cannot control whether people respect you, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control whether opportunities come, but you can control your preparation. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control effort and discipline. You cannot control external chaos, but you can control internal order. When you focus on what you cannot control, you drain your energy. When you focus on what you can, you build your strength. Most people don't lack power, they waste it. They scatter their attention across 1,000 things they can't change, instead of pouring it into the few things they can. The Stoic mind is different. It narrows its focus like a laser. It chooses clarity over chaos, responsibility over rumination, action over anxiety. Here's your practice. Before reacting, ask one question. Is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act with full intention. If the answer is no, release it without negotiation. Because the fourth Stoic law is timeless. Your power lives where your control lives. 5. Train voluntary hardship. If you want to become unbreakable, you cannot wait for life to toughen you. You must toughen yourself. The Stoics believed in something most people today avoid at all costs: voluntary hardship. In a world built around convenience, comfort, shortcuts, and instant gratification, choosing difficulty feels almost insane. But that's exactly why it works. What is rare becomes powerful. What few are willing to do becomes an advantage. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men of his time, would intentionally sleep on the floor, eat the simplest food, and walk through the world without luxury. Not because he needed to, but because he refused to let comfort make him fragile. He understood a truth the modern mind hates to hear. When you depend on comfort, you fear discomfort. And when you fear discomfort, the world controls you. But when you train discomfort, the world loses its grip. Look at life today. People panic when their internet slows. They crumble when someone criticizes them. They feel lost when their routine gets disrupted. They melt under stress because they have trained their nervous system to expect ease. Their tolerance for discomfort is so low that the smallest challenge feels like a threat. This isn't weakness by nature, it's weakness by training. Voluntary hardship reverses that. When you choose to do hard things, small, safe, intentional hard things, you train your mind to handle the larger difficulties life will inevitably bring. Cold showers aren't about the water. They're about building the ability to do something uncomfortable on command. Waking up early isn't about the hour. It's about proving that your mind, not your mood, makes the decision. Fasting isn't about restriction. It's about cutting the leash of craving. Pushing through the last rep at the gym isn't about muscle. It's about telling your mind, we don't quit just because we're tired. Every act of voluntary hardship becomes a vote for a stronger identity. Every day you choose challenge, you expand what you can handle. Every time you step into discomfort, you become less controlled by fear. And here's the hidden reward. When real hardship hits, loss, betrayal, failure, uncertainty, you don't collapse. You've been training for this. Your nervous system is familiar with difficulty. Your mind has rehearsed resilience. Your spirit has practiced endurance. Most people hope life will be gentle. Stoics prepare for when it isn't. So here is your practice. Choose one voluntary hardship each day. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just uncomfortable enough to stretch your mind. Cold water, a tough conversation, a strict hour of focus, a walk in the cold, a craving resisted, a comfort denied. Because the fifth Stoic law holds true in every generation, comfort doesn't build warriors. Hardship does. 6. Detach from outcomes. Love the process. One of the most destructive habits in modern life is tying your worth to results. People obsess over outcomes. How fast they succeed, how others react, how many likes they get, how much progress they can measure today. And when the result doesn't appear on their schedule, they spiral into doubt, anxiety, or self-judgment. They think they've failed, when in reality, they simply haven't waited long enough. Stoicism cuts through this mental chaos with a single principle. Focus on effort, not outcome. The outcomes are never fully yours. You cannot control timing, market conditions, other people's choices, luck, or the hidden variables that shape results. But you can control the process. Your discipline, your habits, your attention, your consistency, your standard of excellence. That is the only part of reality truly in your hands. Marcus Aurelius warned that obsession with success is a trap. When people chase results, they stop living in alignment with virtue. They act from fear instead of wisdom, from ego instead of purpose. They rush, they compare, they cling to validation. And when the world doesn't respond the way they hoped, their confidence collapses. But when you detach from outcome, something powerful happens. You free your mind, you reclaim your energy, you focus on what actually builds you. Think about the gym. You don't grow by staring at the mirror, you grow by showing up, rep after rep, day after day. Think about learning. You don't become skilled by demanding progress, you become skilled by immersing yourself in the craft. Think about relationships. You don't strengthen trust by forcing someone to change. You build trust by consistently being someone trustworthy. The process transforms you. The results reveal that transformation. What destroys people is not the absence of results. It's the expectation that results should come quickly, easily, predictably. They treat growth like a fast food order, not a lifelong discipline. But mastery doesn't respond to impatience. It responds to consistency. When you love the process, you become unstoppable because you no longer depend on motivation or praise to keep going. You keep going because it's who you are. Discipline becomes identity, effort becomes expression, progress becomes a natural side effect. Here's your practice. Define what a perfect process looks like for you. Your daily habits, your minimum standards, your effort goals. Then commit to that process without obsessing over how fast the reward arrives. Because the sixth Stoic law is unshakable. When discipline becomes identity, you become unstoppable. 7. Remember you will die. Memento mori. There is one truth that every human shares, yet almost everyone avoids. One day, your time will run out. Most people live as if life is an unlimited resource, wasting days, postponing dreams, tolerating toxic people, delaying hard conversations, and assuming there will always be later. But later is a myth. Later is the most dangerous lie we tell ourselves, and nothing exposes that lie more clearly than the Stoic reminder, remember, you will die. This isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly about death, not because he was morbid, but because he understood its power. By holding mortality in his mind, he sharpened his priorities, amplified his gratitude, and cut away distraction. He knew that when you remember life is finite, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. Look at the modern world. People spend years in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, habits that numb them, routines that suffocate their potential. They tell themselves they'll change when things calm down, when they feel ready, when the timing is better. But weeks become months. Months become years. And suddenly they wonder where their youth, their ambition, their fire went. Life didn't take it from them. They surrendered it slowly. Memento mori breaks that spell. It forces you to see time as it truly is. Fragile, limited, and precious. It pushes you to stop waiting for permission. It reminds you that the moments you're wasting now are the moments you'll beg to have back later. And it reveals a brutal, liberating truth. Urgency is not pressure. It's clarity. When you remember you will die, conversations change. You speak honestly instead of politely. You forgive faster. You love deeper. You hold boundaries. You stop chasing approval. You stop postponing the life you want to live. You stop pretending you have forever. Imagine if you knew tomorrow was your last day. What would suddenly matter? What would no longer matter at all? Who would you call? What would you start? What would you finally walk away from? That clarity is available to you right now, without tragedy, without loss, without waiting for a crisis to wake you up. Here is your practice. Write down 3 things you would regret if your life ended tomorrow. Then take one step toward each of them today, not next week, not next month, today. Because the 7th Stoic law is both the harshest and the most freeing. 8. Live by virtue, not validation. One of the most destructive addictions in the modern world isn't alcohol, money, or comfort. It's approval. People build their entire lives around being liked, being accepted, being praised. They shape their personality to fit rooms, silence their truth to avoid conflict, and bend their values just to avoid judgment. And at the end of the day, they wonder why they feel empty. Because nothing is more exhausting than living for an audience. Stoicism offers a different path. Live by virtue, not validation. Virtue was the Stoics' highest standard. Not appearance, not popularity, not applause. They believed that true character is revealed in what you do when no one is watching. It is the quiet discipline, the consistent honesty, the integrity you uphold even when it brings no reward. That is what separates a strong mind from a fragile one. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet wrote reminders to himself like, "Do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." Imagine that. A man with more power than almost anyone in history, still reminding himself that external praise means nothing if inner principles are lost. He understood something the modern world often forgets. The crowd's approval is temporary, but your character is permanent. Think about your own life. How many decisions have you delayed because you were afraid of how others would see you? How many times have you stayed quiet when you should have spoken? How often have you tried to impress people who weren't even worth impressing? This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. Society teaches us to chase validation like oxygen. But the more you chase it, the more trapped you become. When you shift from validation to virtue, everything changes. You start saying no when something violates your values. You stop justifying yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation. You let go of the need to be liked and commit instead to being respected, especially by yourself. You stop performing and start living. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing validation, you actually gain more respect. People trust those who stay consistent. They admire those who stand on principle. They remember those who refuse to betray themselves for approval. Living by virtue does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming honest. It means choosing integrity over convenience, truth over image, and long-term self-respect over short-term applause. Here is your practice. Choose one core value: honesty, responsibility, courage, discipline, and live it today without announcing it, without posting it, without seeking recognition. Let the action be enough. Because the 8th Stoic law is the foundation of an unshakable life. Be the warrior for what is right, not what is popular. You've just walked through 8 brutal Stoic laws, 8 principles that don't comfort you, but challenge you, confront you, and ultimately transform you. Hardship, emotional mastery, acceptance of unfairness, focusing on what you control, voluntary discipline, detaching from outcomes, remembering your mortality, and living by virtue over validation. These are not ideas to admire, they are practices to embody. Because the purpose of Stoicism was never to make life easier. It was to make you stronger, stronger than your impulses, stronger than your fears, stronger than the chaos around you. If even one of these laws struck something in you, don't let it fade. Choose one principle and live it today, not someday, not when things calm down. Strength is built in real time, in real decisions, in real moments where you choose discipline over comfort, clarity over emotion, and character over approval. You don't become unbreakable by thinking about change. You become unbreakable by acting on it. So before you leave this video, take a breath and declare your commitment in the comments. I am becoming unshakable. And if you found value in this journey, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Because we're building a community of people who refuse to live passively, who choose to sharpen their mind, raise their standards, and take full responsibility for their inner world. Your transformation isn't a moment, it's a decision. Make it today.